guys, Ray from Lovely RV and Boat, and as you notice when I walked up, there's a toilet on the dock. So today's project is to replace this old manual pump toilet that we have in the forward head with an electric toilet. They're both Jabsco brand. Toilet just arrived the other day. I was able to get the old one out pretty easily. Just had to unhook a few hoses. Luckily there wasn't much nastiness to go on, hardly even a drip. This one has a built-in macerator pump. So you just push a button and it pumps water in and then pumps the waste out. It's going through a smaller hose than it did before, so I'm going to have to do kind of an interconnect there. And then we got the lid. And this is just basically a simple one. Some of them have multiple buttons. This just has the one button to worry about. You press that and it should pump and macerate the waste. And I'll be really happy because she hates that old pump toilet. I'll show you where it was in here. This is inside our forward head. The toilet's been taken out. So down here we have a couple through-hole seacocks that are below the water line, so they're closed off right now. This will be the line coming in, and then this is the line going out. So it's still connected to a hose because this has a holding tank. Our other toilet doesn't have a holding tank, it's just all raw seawater and expelled right to the ocean, but this one has a holding tank for areas that you can't do that in. So the old hose went through this hole here. I'll show you on the other side the holding tank and then where that hose goes in. Should be a pretty easy install. I have the floor off right now. And then this is the floor that I'll mount it on. There's various holes have been drilled in there before, and places for the hosing to come out, so I'll have to see what goes on there. I just pop this flooring off so we can see the holding tank. So yeah, down in the engine bay here, you can see right about there is where the hose came through. And then here's our holding tank. It's about a 25-gallon. Just have some paper towel shoved in there right now. Keep the smell out. But right up there is where the hose went in. And this is the size of hose that was installed. You can see it's all fairly clean in there. What I did before the job is I got some eco-friendly type cleaner, and I pumped it into the hose and kind of just let it sit for a few days. And then I didn't have much stuff. I just pumped as much as I could, cleaned it right out. So I think I might have to use some of this to make the interconnect on the hose, because the toilet doesn't use that big a hose like the old one did. This is the size on the new one. I think it's a 1-inch inside diameter. So I have some of that hosing kicking around in here, and they also included a adapter with the toilet to go from this size to the bigger size, so we'll just see how that works out. And also on the back I have some wiring, so I have to connect that up to 12 volts. I think what I'm going to do is I have DC panel here, and there's some spare breakers on there, so I'll probably put a breaker. There's one dedicated to the overboard macerator pump, so I'll probably use one of the spares on that panel for my toilet pump. Anyway, let's get the plumbing first. Okay, first step, kind of found a mounting place. So I want the lid to be able to stay up. A nice place to sit. So I was able to get the inlet hose on and routed right there. Let's see at the back. A couple hose clamps on there. Now I have to get the output hose. Right now I just have one bolt in an old hole. I think I'm going to have to drill some new holes for this one. None of them really match. So moving on to the next stage, kind of hit a snag here. This comes out like this, and this hose is going to have to go way around and back down so that it doesn't get kinked. This actually goes up there. Now, this company does sell a right-angled output, so probably going to have to down the road get that. I'll get this functional for now and then order that, and then I'll be able to, it'll come right angle and I'll be able to go straight up. I won't have this big loop of hose out here. So I just wanted to get everything kind of set up where I want it to be so it's kind of straight and the toilet seat's able to stay up. And I've marked the other holes, so now I'm going to pull it apart and mount this bottom plate and see if we can wrangle this hose down through the opening there and connect it to the bigger hose. On the other side of the wall here, by the holding tank, I'm going to use the adapter they gave me to go from that size of hose to my big hose there. Well, digging around some of the spare parts, I found this white sanitation hose handy, so I'm going to save this other hose. It's actually super thick, a little overkill for the job, so this one's a little shorter too, so they won't have to cut this one. Well, tank side complete. Got the big hose connected to the little hose down there, and then it goes through the wall to the bathroom. And then up here I have the bigger hose going into the tank like it did before. Let's go show you in the bathroom what we got. A little bit of sawdust from drilling. We got the toilet mounted, pretty solid. Got this hose, output hose coming there. Other side we got the input hose. And then down in here is where it goes out into the engine room. Anyway, that looks like all the plumbing done. Now I'm going to have some upgrades in the future. Just trying to get it functional right now with the type of parts I can get locally. But like I say, I'd like to get the right angle for that so the hose goes straight down and further out that way. And also maybe get some better hose clamps. They seem to do the job, but you can get really nice marine band clamps. So I'll do it right the first time. Now, next we're going to get the electrical out. Maybe give this water a test, see if we have any leaks. Quick electrical test here. I just have a jumper box that I can bypass. It gives me 12.3 volts, kind of like a battery. Just hooked it up in line just to test the switch and the pump. Seems to work. So we'll open the seacocks and see if we have any leaks in there. Okay, seems to be working. Drawing water in, sucking it out. Looking good. Let's see if we have any leaks anywhere. Yeah, it looks like I got a leak right where that hose reduction is. Maybe I didn't get it tight enough, or maybe it's just the wrong size for those diameter hoses. So we'll check into that. Okay, well, it's all installed and functional. Of course, what was going to be just a couple-hour job turned into an all-day event due to that one little connection causing a leak. Anyway, I went out yesterday and combed the local hardware stores and plumbing things, but I couldn't find a connector that would work. So I have used the existing connector, but bought a different hose that's not really the proper hose for this job. I'll show you what's going on. So I found this 1-inch hose. It's just a braided plastic hose. It's like braided inside. It's good for liquids and chemicals and gas, but it's not really the hose that's meant for the job. I find in the boats they use what's called a sanitation hose, which is those white ones, and they're much thicker and don't kink as easy. Anyway, I got it hooked up. No leaks or anything, and the thing's functional. I've had to put this big loop in here right now because they do have that optional, I said, right angle there, so I've ordered that. Of course, it was like little plastic elbows, like $35 or something, but that way the hose will be able to go straight down and it'll be all hidden away. I was able to mount the flush button right here next to the unit, so I drilled a hole through the wall and into the engine compartment on the other side. I'll show you the wiring in a minute. Mounted the toilet seat. Stays up. I'll just give you a demo here. There we go. So let's go to the engine compartment and I will show you the wiring that I did. This is the original hose that went to the holding tank. And you can see, I think it's 1.5 inches inside diameter, and it's quite rubbery, whereas this was the 1-inch hose that I was trying to use that hooks to the toilet now, and they call that a sanitation hose. And then I was trying to use this hose to replace that, but that black plastic connector they included with the toilet, it just wouldn't behave with these hoses. No matter how tight I did the hose clamps up, they would always leak. So like I said, I went and got that vinyl hose, which is a little softer material, and this material is a little softer too. It's more rubbery. This is more hard-walled, really thick, so it just needs a different type of interconnect, which I haven't been able to find locally, but at some point hopefully I can get that interconnected and use these hoses. So I'll just show you the arrangement right now. Back there is where it comes through the wall, and it's just looping around. You can see a kink there, and there's another kink that's due to their stupid packaging. They package it and then put straps on it and end up kinking the hose for you. Hopefully it'll kind of loosen up. So it goes around, and then you can see where I mated it up there using that black plastic interconnect and that softer hose, and I don't have any leaks. So the whole problem's being because they were using the pump toilet, and the pump toilet used like 1.5 inch hose, because of course it wants to pump your toilet paper and waste through that. It needed the big thick hose, so on the back of on the top of the holding tank they've put the same size connector. But the new Macerator pump uses a 1-inch hose because it's already, chewing up the waste, so it doesn't need as big a hose. So that's the quandary I have, is trying to get a connector to match that. The other alternative would be to put a different connection into the top of the waste tank, which I guess I can do. I'm not really sure how those things are done, right? Maybe they're just screwed in, but they almost look like they're plastic welded. Anyway, it's functional. Once I figure out the permanent solution, I'll come back and let you know what I ended up doing. I'll be back with another video with a review once we've used this, for a couple months, and let you know how it's performed. Now for the wiring, you can see it's just it comes underneath the toilet floor there and comes through the opening with the hose. And the negative wire I took down, and you can see that terminal down there, terminal strip. That is actually the one they installed for the macerator for the holding tank. So I was able to go on there and connect to its ground. And then I had to run a positive wire. Like I said before, I was going to run a positive wire to the breakers, but unfortunately when I was looking at the the manual, it said the Macerator draws 16 amps, but they want a 25 amp fuse, and I don't have any 25 amp breakers in my my upstairs distribution area. So I went and bought myself, spent some money, bought myself this Blue Sea fuse terminals here, so it can handle 4 different fuses. And I decided to go for that because in the future I'll probably have projects where I might need more fuses. So I put a 25 amp fuse in number 1 and connect it to that. And then I have to get to the battery. So I used some 6 gauge wire here and ran it over to the battery. But before it gets to the battery, there is a 100 amp breaker. So that 100 amp breaker will protect the wiring over here in case anything goes wrong or anything happens here that you end up grounding out this area. That 100 amp breaker will blow. Anything beyond this, these fuses will blow. To be very, I like to fuse every string of wire. So that 100 amp breaker from that goes down, and then it's meeting into the DC bus down here, so that'll get protected by a fuse on the house battery bank. Right now it's just hooked to the terminal that's the alternator. That's future project, is to clean up all this wiring and go in and check every wire run and fuse it properly, because there's some of them that don't even have a fuse. Like for instance, I don't even think the solar is fused, so you get this tiny little wire going to the solar and it's basically unfused. But anyway, enough about that. That's my wiring system. So there you go, toilet all installed. Anne's going to be really happy with that. No more pumping, just push the button. Like I said, I'll come back with a toilet review. If anybody knows of a good parts suppliers for plumbing like this, drop a link in the comments. I'm slowly building on my bookmarks on boating, and any advice on the plumbing, feel free to put it in there. I'm learning as I go, and it's good to have experienced people comment and help teach me. Till next time, Ray from Love You RV and Boat. Cheers, guys.